Ever since I was a kid, I dreamed of living in Japan. From afar, Japan was a place that fascinated me. Its society was so beautifully different compared to what I was used to growing up in the States. It almost seemed that everything was opposite from what I knew, and these differences intrigued me. I was completely taken by Japan's art, culture, and natural beauty, and knew that one day I had to find myself there. Once I became an adult, I set off for Asia, and found myself in Thailand for 7 wonderful and unexpected years. But as time went on, the allure of Japan became ever so stronger, and I simply could not hold out any longer. So I jumped on a plane for what would be the greatest move of my life. I can now say that I've proudly called Japan my home for the past 8 years. Many things about Japan blew away my initial expectations, and of course, many things were completely different from what I had expected. One thing that I absolutely wasn't prepared for was how incredibly difficult learning the Japanese language would be for me. You can see many videos online about how someone learned language X in 7 days. This is not going to be one of those videos. In this video, I'm going to discuss with you my tremendous failure with the Japanese language, the mistakes I made along the way, how you can avoid them, and after 2,920 long days of studying, what are the absolute best resources that I found? Hajimemashou. So the first thing I want to talk about is how I chose the wrong textbook when I was first starting out and studying Japanese. I actually started studying Japanese for the first time when I was still living in Thailand. I wanted to really be prepared, and I wanted to try to be ready. I didn't want to just arrive to a country without knowing any of the language. So a couple of months before I moved to Japan, I went out to a bookstore in Bangkok, and I was searching through the different textbooks to use, and there's actually a wide variety of textbooks that I could choose. But the biggest mistake that I did is I chose a textbook that was in Romanji. So for those of you guys that know Japanese or study Japanese, there's basically, 4 different alphabets in Japanese. The first one is Japanese, is Romaji, which is basically Japanese transliterated in Roman letters, which really, isn't used in Japan. It's really just for foreigners. And then there is hiragana, which is Japanese phonetic alphabet that's used to, basically write Japanese words. And there's katakana, which is a Japanese phonetic alphabet that's used to write foreign loan words. And then there's kanji, which is Chinese characters. So pretty much Japanese is written in, kanji, hiragana, and katakana. That's real Japanese. And romanji is basically, just for foreigners. Obviously, being a native English speaker, just feeling comfortable with the Roman alphabet, it felt more comfortable to select a book that was in Romanji. So that's what I did. I started off with the textbook Japanese for Busy People, which is actually, it's a really good textbook series. It's very popular. It's used in a lot of universities. It was a good resource. But the problem is, Romanji is not real Japanese. And by starting to study Japanese through Romanji, what it really did is it hurt my ability to be able to read and understand Japanese. And so I started out studying this textbook, and I'm reading, Japanese in Romanji. And what it ends up doing is it really just ends up, adding on extra time that it takes you to study Japanese, because the more and more, the deeper that I got into learning and understanding words visually in Romanji, the deeper I got into forming bad habits, because these are not, real words. This is not how Japanese is written. And then, I ended up going really deep down this path. And then I have to, just rewind my progress again once I start learning hiragana and katakana. So it's like, I learned, let's say, you learn 500 words and you learn them in Romanji, and you actually want to learn Japanese. It's like you have to go backwards and study those words again from the beginning. So this, when it comes to textbooks, it was the number one biggest mistake that I made. I never, ever, ever should have started studying Japanese with Romanji. So eventually what I ended up doing is I ended up going back and starting again at the beginning. And this time I found what I really believe to be the best textbook series, and That is the Genki textbook series, and I really highly recommend using Genki textbooks. There's Genki 1, there's Genki 2, there's textbooks, there's student workbooks, and they even have like a supplementary kanji book that you can use. And I think for independent learners, if you want to study Japanese just by yourself on your own, it's really tremendous. It's by far the best textbook resource that I've ever found for Japanese. So I really, really highly recommend using this textbook. I think that you'll find the grammar explanations easy to understand. I think you'll find the practice exercises plentiful. And there's, just some really nice dialogue, some really good, useful Japanese. I think if you can get through Genki 1 and 2 series, it will give you a really nice baseline for your Japanese ability. So that would be my suggestion if you want to learn from my mistakes. So for this part, I want to talk about why I was wrong about kanji. So in the beginning, when I started to study Japanese, I had this in my mind that kanji was something that's very difficult. Like if you just pick up a book in Japanese, right? If you pick up a book in Chinese and you look at a book full of these characters, it looks so difficult. You're thinking, my God, how can I ever learn how to decipher this? It looks, basically it looks incredibly intimidating. And how I was feeling about kanji in the beginning was really much how I was feeling about learning hiragana and katakana and starting off my Japanese study with Romanji. I felt, kanji is something that's too difficult. Maybe when my Japanese is better, I can go back and I can start learning the kanji. It will be easier when I already know, how to speak Japanese, when I understand the grammar, when I understand the vocabulary, I'll go back and kanji will be a lot easier. That's kind of how I thought. So for a long time, even when I had went back and I moved from basically Japanese for busy people and I went back and I did the Genki series again, Genki has kanji in it, but I did it without focusing on the kanji, which again, it's another mistake because what it is, okay, so you get through like all these beginner Japanese texts, but you did it without kanji and you develop this knowledge, and then what happens? You have to go back again and learn all the things that you've already learned again in order to pick up the kanji, because again, I'm seeing these words in purely hiragana and katakana, which are written with kanji and hiragana and katakana. So you have to go backwards again. So this was a really big mistake. Listen, I know it's really intimidating to look at written Japanese and you think that it's so hard, but really if you want to do it the right way, the only way to study Japanese is from the beginning. From the very beginning, learn how to read in Japanese. Learn kanji from day one. Learn hiragana, katakana first, of course, and then after that, start learning kanji immediately. Gain familiarity with how Japanese actually looks like. And I struggled with kanji for a long time. I tried to basically learn through some different kind of picture systems and flashcards. I tried to learn kanji by writing it. And then finally, I found a kanji system that really works for me. And then that system is Wanikani. And I want to jump into the computer and I want to show you what that's all about, because this is really the best resource that I've ever found. And for any of you guys studying Japanese, for me, Wanikani is an absolute must. Video is not sponsored by Wanikani or anything like that, but it is something that I use on a daily basis. And I really, truly believe in it. Okay, so we're here in the computer, guys, and I want to show you what Wanikani is. Wanikani is essentially a system to learn how to recognize and be able to read kanji. And it also teaches you a lot of vocabulary along the way. So this is incredibly useful. So how Wanikani teaches kanji is that first what it will do is it will teach you the radicals. And radicals are essentially the pieces that will make up the different parts of the kanji, and they will name each radical. And then what they will do is they will use a story with these pieces in order to kind of give you a mnemonic, in a sense, to kind of help you remember the meaning of the kanji. Okay, so you can just look at, these are some of the pieces of the kanji. You can see this one here is big and this one here is person. Okay, so then after you
master the radicals, what they'll do is then they will start to teach you the kanji. And so the kanji, they'll first teach you one of the readings. So for example, big, they teach you tai, and where's the other one? Person, the reading they teach you is nin. Okay, so then after you master the kanji, then it will go down to vocabulary. And what the vocabulary will do is they will introduce some vocabulary which have the original readings that you learned here in the kanji. And they will also teach you some new vocabulary that can teach you alternate readings of the particular kanji that you learned. So if we look at this vocabulary here, this vocabulary is adult, otona. So this is actually two alternate readings for tai and nin that I just showed you a little bit earlier. So that's kind of how the system works. It's incredibly useful, and then what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll learn your lessons, and you can learn some new kanji, and then there's an SRS system, and then it can go through and it will do some reviews with you. So I'll do a few reviews with you guys now so you can just see. So this one is kakeru, to lack. So it's to lack, kakeru. This is a radical. It is sickle. This means bird. So this one is tori. Oops, so it's not tori. This one is cho. This one means to open up, kaihou suru. Bird. So that's it. That's basically the system. But they do have a free trial, so you guys can get in here and check this out a little bit if you guys want. It's incredibly useful. I think the first 3 levels are free, so I really highly suggest just get in there, give it a try.
So now I want to talk about my struggles with Japanese grammar. This is another thing that is intensely difficult in Japanese. Grammar in Japanese is really crazy. I mean, there's so much obscure grammar. There's so many ways to say one thing with all of these things that have these really delicate nuances in them. And I mean, Japanese grammar for me for years and years and years is something that just made me want to bang my head up against a wall. I would ask my Japanese friends, I would ask my coworkers, I would ask everybody like, hey, what does this mean? How do I explain this? I'd be reading a manga and it had, some grammar that I didn't understand, and I would ask somebody. And what I found is that I think for people who are not studying Japanese, people who are native speakers of Japanese, there's just so much grammar that you just naturally absorb, and it's very difficult to explain. So I have to say, after 8 years, I really have never felt or I've never met someone in Japan. I've never met a Japanese person who I felt was able to explain a piece of grammar to me clearly because, it's something that's just very natural for them. It's something, it's their native language. It's the same in English. I mean, sometimes we have grammar that it's just difficult to explain. I mean, in English, every single grammar rule can be broken. I mean, Japanese is a lot more formulaic than English, but there's a lot of nuance that I think is very difficult to explain. So I was failing big time at grammar for years and years and years, and I just couldn't break the code on it. And it was a big struggle for me, particularly when I tried to do things like read manga. Because there's a lot of, kind of casual grammar, there's a lot of nuanced grammar, a lot of things that I think you don't find in textbooks. And for me to be able to break the code on the grammar, I felt like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. And then one day I was online and I was reading a Japanese study forum, and I learned about this new grammar resource, and I went and I checked it out. And it's called Bunpro, and this is the second resource that I want to introduce you guys. And this resource really completely changed my life when it came to Japanese grammar. It's been the only thing that's given me the amount of grammar and reading practice I need on a daily basis to really sort of make grammar automatic in my mind and be able to break the code on some of the things that I've been seeing, whether it's online, chatting with friends, or in manga that I've been reading. This has been super helpful. So I want to jump into the computer. And so let's check this out as well, guys.
Okay, guys, now I just want to just quickly show you about Boon So this is Boon and essentially this is for grammar primarily, and also it's really great reading practice. There's a way where you can go into the settings and you can kind of sync your progress with kanji from Wanekani into this system. It knows what types of kanji to show you without any assistance of furigana, which is, just basically tiny little hiragana or katakana marks above the kanji to tell you the reading. So the really nice thing about Boon is it breaks it down very systematically by levels. Okay, so you have like N5, which is the lowest level of Japanese, all the way up to N1, which is the highest level. And then it has all the grammar topics, and when you finish the grammar topic, it will give you a stamp, and so these are different grammar topics. So what will happen when you get a topic, so let's just, for example, go to the show, which just means right, probably. If we click on this particular, let's see if it goes, yeah, so it goes to the grammar point, here's the show, it explains the grammar point, what does it mean, it will give you some other explanations down here. If you wanted to do some self-study, it can give you some other resources here if it wasn't enough for you. If you want to go check it out in a textbook, you're able to do that. But the best part about Boon is it gives you all of these sample sentences using the grammar, and all of it has audio. They have basically male and female recordings, so you just come, you read the sentence, you click it, you can hear the sentence being said, and then it will also use an SRS to test you on the things that you have learned, okay? So that's pretty much the system, and it's really, really effective because what it does is it forces you to basically do fill-in-the-blank exercises when you go to your review. Okay, so let's go to the review. It will force you to do these fill-in-the-blank exercises where you have to use the grammar that you've been learning in the real context of a sentence repeatedly again and again and again and again. And eventually these grammar points will become automatic for you. So let's look at this particular sentence here. So I thought I would need all these, but I didn't need them at all. So the answer for this one should be ra. So we type in ra, and that one is correct, okay? So for this one, kanojo wa something no gengo o pera pera hanaseru you ni natta. So this one should be ikutsuku ka. Ikutsuka. Good. Okay, so this is more or less the system. Okay, you get a sentence, it will be based on some kind of grammar point that you learned, and then you have to fill in the blank. All right, so that's Boon and they also do have some type of trial for this one. I'm not sure how long it is. There may be some levels that are free, but this one is really incredibly very, very affordable. I think it's only something like $3 per month, something like that. I think it's even cheaper if you get an annual membership. Right now I'm just going month by month, but this is super helpful. This is what really helped me crack.
So now I want to talk about how I kind of overburdened and overpressured myself with Japanese. If you guys have studied another language, let's say your native language is English, and maybe you studied Italian, or you studied French, or you studied Spanish. Probably, it was a challenge, but it probably didn't take forever to learn. Maybe you were able to learn it after a year or two, or maybe after 3 years. And, probably wasn't overly difficult to do. But Japanese, or if you're learning Chinese, something that has a completely different script is incredibly different. And Japanese is going to take at least twice as long to learn, because in order to simply learn how to read and write in Japanese, it takes an extremely long amount of time. When I'm studying Japanese every day just to keep pace with my kanji, it probably takes me, an hour a day to continue just to be able to read kanji and to be able to make progress to learn more. And as we know, there's thousands and thousands of kanji. So, I feel that if you really want to study Japanese, you need at least an hour a day for reading and writing practice, and then you need a little bit of additional time to develop your language, in other areas, particularly in conversation and things like that. So that's something you have to understand from the outset. Progress is going to be a lot slower, and the time you have to dedicate to it is going to be at least twice as long. And in the beginning, when I was studying Japanese, and when I'm saying in the beginning, I mean for like the first 7 years, okay? Because these are things I'm just, finally learning. Probably like the first 7 years that I was studying Japanese, I was pushing myself so hard, and what I realized would happen is I would overburden myself, and I would just try to go at it too hard. I'd end up getting burnt out. I'd quit for a while. I'd feel, relaxed again. I'd feel my motivation coming back. I'd go at it again, and I'd go at it so hard I would burn out. I'd quit. I'd, catch my breath. I'd go at it hard again, and I quit. And I kept going through these cycles where I'd have all this motivation. I'd go after it. I'd quit because I would just be constantly burning myself out and overburdening myself. And it hasn't been until really recently that I realized, listen, if you're going to stick this out, no matter what, no matter how slow your progress may be, you have to make sure that you're having fun. The moment that you stop having fun, the moment it feels like a chore and you're overburdening yourself, you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to burn out and you're going to quit. So this time around, when I've been studying Japanese, I've been able to have a lot more staying power. And the reason is I'm always making sure that this is manageable. So now I only use 3 resources on a daily basis. I use Wanikani for my kanji, for vocabulary development, for reading. I use Bunpro for grammar and for reading. And I have one other free application that I use for vocabulary development to get a little bit of extra vocab. Because Wanikani, I think it has maybe, 5,000 vocabulary words, something like that. And you need a lot more than that. So I use something called Tori. And I'll jump in the computer and show you this too. This is a free resource. I think it has something like over 10,000 vocabulary apps. But yeah, basically I only use these 3 resources now, and I use them in a way where I make sure that I'm not overburdening myself. For Wanikani, I try to make sure that I'm not having more than 100 reviews in a day. For Bunpro, I try to keep it to around like 10 to 15 reviews a day, and then Tori is something you can do faster. I try to keep it, around like maybe 40 or 50 reviews every single day. And then after that, I just supplement it with conversation. And that's how I try to keep myself, just at a pace that's still enjoyable, still fun. I can still make some progress. It's a lot slower, but again, it's fun and I'm not burning out. Okay, so let's jump into the computer. Let's look at Tori really quick, just so you guys can have an eye on what that's like.
Okay, guys, so the last resource that I would like to go over here is this one. This is Tori SRS. And basically, this is just for vocabulary. When you look at it, you're going to see a lot of similarities to Wanikani. It has a look, it has the feel of Wanikani. It's very, very similar, and I think this was made by fans of Wanikani, if I'm correct, I'm not sure. But just that wish that Wanikani had a little bit more expansive vocabulary. So this really has, I think, more than double the amount of vocab in Wanikani. And this particular resource, it is 100% completely free. So there's no excuse. Just go ahead, download this straight away, and you can also learn your new vocab according to the JLPT level, so the N5 all the way up to N1, and you can kind of track your progress. I've only been using this for, I don't know, maybe even less than 2 months now. So if we go and look at my progress, so yeah, there's looks like there's almost 10,000 words in this particular system. I guess I've been studying for 25 days, and I've learned 900 words out of the 9,500 so far. And then you can kind of track how much study time you've had, how much review time you've had, and yeah, that's essentially the system. But I find it's a very good supplement to Wanikani and to Bunpro. One of the things that I really like about vocabulary study is, at least for me, when there's times when, let's say for example, if I already know particular vocabulary words and I'm introduced to new kanji, there's many cases where I feel that new kanji is easier for me to learn because I can already think about a vocabulary word that it's connected with. And then by knowing that, I will already know some of the readings for the kanji. So it is really helpful. And I mean, vice versa. Sometimes, for example, it can be the opposite way. You know, if I know kanji, but I've never seen a there's a brand new vocabulary with kanji that I know, often I will be able to read and understand the kanji because you already know the readings, you'll have the essence of the kanji themselves. So I really like hitting that from both angles. You know, kanji can help you understand vocabulary, and vocabulary can also help you to understand kanji. So yeah, this is also a great resource. Please sign up for this one straight away.
So the last thing I want to talk about is how my Japanese speaking really lagged behind. And I just want to compare this to, I've been abroad now for about 14 or 15 years, and I've spent about half that time in Thailand, and I spent about half that time in Japan. And I've studied both Thai and Japanese, and my experience studying and learning these languages were both incredibly different. I remember my 7 years in Thailand when I was studying Thai. It was very highly motivating because I would study something, I would get excited about what I would learn, and I'd go out into society and people would talk to me. Strangers would talk to me on the streets, and every day I would be able to practice the language that I was studying. And for Thai, it was very highly motivating, and I got to a point of fluency in Thai very, very rapidly because of this, because I was able to use on a daily basis what I was studying with strangers. And so when I first moved to Japan, Tokyo specifically, I kind of expected the same thing, and I was really excited. I studied Japanese for about 3 or 4 months before moving to Tokyo, and I was really excited to arrive to Japan, and I was excited to use my Japanese with strangers. But what I really found quickly was that living in Tokyo, people just didn't talk to each other, pretty much people just moving silently about their days, and it was extremely rare for any stranger, and I mean rare in that case that maybe once a year, if that, a stranger would talk to me unsolicited. And so this was, really jarring for me. And, as a language learner, I was finding it challenging to find opportunities to practice my Japanese outside of, ordering food at a restaurant or, having the same interaction over and over again with somebody at a convenience store, or at a supermarket. But to have opportunities to kind of use a language that I was learning, those opportunities really weren't presenting themselves to me. And so it became really demotivating for me to kind of speak and communicate in Japanese. So what I found happening is my reading ability, my listening ability going well far beyond my ability to actually speak and communicate in Japanese. And I would say that issue, is really still present today. My ability to read Japanese, my ability to listen and to understand Japanese is tremendously greater than my ability to just sit and speak. And that's just because of, kind of a pattern I fell into from the beginning. So if you're moving to Japan, how can you kind of counterbalance this? Well, I think there's a lot of things that you can do. In Japan, there's actually a lot of free Japanese classes that you can take. Some are government sponsored, some are, created by hobby groups. There's a lot of different Japanese groups that you can find online if you just search for Japanese conversation groups. There's different kind of, just hobby groups that you can get together, whether it's things, let's say sushi making or some special Japanese craft where you can go and have an opportunity to speak in Japanese. There's some great apps like Hello Talk and Tandem where you could find Japanese language partners despite, wherever you may be in the world, just to help that kind of conversation. And, I would just have to really encourage you, anything that you can do to get in that language practice, you absolutely have to do it. It doesn't matter how many hours a day you're spending studying language. If you're not going to use it, it's not going to grow. Language is a muscle. And if you're not using it, it's going to get weaker and weaker every single day. And again, this is something I still struggle with because I got into a bad habit of not speaking Japanese for many years. And it's something that I still have to try to push myself to get out of. So in summary, guys, if you are thinking about picking up Japanese, don't be like me. Don't make decisions that will cause you to study Japanese for 2,920 days. Do things the right way. If you're going to study Japanese, start from the beginning, learning hiragana and katakana. As soon as you've learned hiragana and katakana, start studying kanji immediately. Get on WaniKani, it's 100% worth the membership. Get on Boon Pro, it's 100% worth the membership. I would highly suggest to start with those resources. It's not doesn't take much of an investment, and for sure, download Tori. It's a free resource, so I would really suggest start using those three. Download Hello Talk, download Tandem. Find some language partners from the beginning, and I think if you do all of those things from the absolute beginning and really throw yourself into it, speak as much as you can, make mistakes, maybe you can make a video on how you've learned Japanese in a short amount of time. So that's it for this video, guys. Best wishes to you for your studies. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell, and until next time, guys, happy studying and take it easy.